The Goonerverse podcast is back, everyone. And as you can expect, we'll obviously discuss a little bit of that Fulham win, and we'll look ahead to Atletico Madrid tomorrow night. Arsenal remain top of the table. We've got to come out and just say it. At the time of recording, we don't know the Liverpool United result. And obviously, with us 3 points ahead of City at the time of recording, if Liverpool drop points, then we've extended that gap, which would be great. But we're not really here to discuss the title race too much. And we've done a lot of analysing the title race, even quite early on. So to be fair, not knowing the Liverpool result isn't going to affect everything we're going to discuss too much. I think we want to discuss, obviously, the Fulham win, set pieces, Gyokeres, which I discussed on Loose Cannons. That's obviously out on Turkish's channel. We'll discuss him a little bit. He's been the topic of conversation for a while. And we'll build our 11 for Atletico Madrid, look ahead to what that could look like, talk about sort of the enormity of actually getting the task done in the Champions League. And as always, find out how Sheroy's wedding was this week. And I imagine you were at one, my friend. No.
Did you see that comment on the last video? There's someone that commented on the last one going, I was just waiting for Sheroy to say that he was at a wedding. But lo and behold, it was James who attended one. I had to reply and I was like, mate, even I was shocked. Can you imagine my shock when James said he was at the first wedding he's ever been to? You were in Covent Garden. I saw you recording your post-match, walking along the streets of London like an absolute G. What was going on there?
Which, in fairness, like, I was probably being a little bit reckless just wandering around with my phone like that. But
is your phone in your hand when you're doing it? Or is it on like one of those extender sticks?
No, it's in my hand. But
you're asking to get jacked one day, man. You are asking to get robbed.
I mean, I was like really... but even then, someone flies past and they nick it. There's nothing you can do, is there? But yeah, I don't know. I was just on the high of the win and birthday celebrations and all that. So I was like, oh, it's fine. But yeah, probably a bit stupid. So, I mean, while I make jokes, everyone do be careful around London. There have been a lot of sort of phone and stuff if you're in London. So yeah, be a little bit careful. But I actually do have this like, this thing you could put around your wrist that attaches to your case. So I'll roll with that in future. But anyway, I was in Covent Garden, and for me, Arsenal will never like ruin my birthday, if that makes sense. Like, if we'd lost or drawn, I was still gonna have as good a night. But my God, is it nice when you just get the points, still top of the league, and you think, yeah, okay, right, we'll keep it moving. Sheroy, like, I literally just come off the back of recording Loose Cannons, and obviously that's come out 24 hours before this pod. In real, as people are watching this. And I did think it was a really interesting chat with Tosin, Turkish, Jordan. And the sentiment was, you know what at the time felt like a frustrating 90 minutes was actually a really hard fought, well-earned win. And we weren't great. We're not going to be great every week. Credit to the boys. It's basically where everyone's at with it.
Do we not feel like that way a lot with Arsenal, though? When we're watching it live and we know what's at stake and we can see that, they're getting into our half even. We're sort of on edge, especially when the margin is only one goal, right? But then I messaged you immediately after the game and I was like, is this the second game in a row where our opponent hasn't had a single shot on target? It didn't feel that way when I was watching it, right? Because Wilson had 3 or 4 that he skied or whatever. So it felt like they were a bit closer to scoring than they perhaps actually were when you look at the numbers. But
yeah, agreed.
I think this is another one where if we did do a rewatch, we'd look at it and go, well, actually, we extinguished them really, really effectively. And I think now all of our opponents, when they come up against us and they speak about us afterwards, they do just describe us as either the best team defensively in the Premier League or the best defensive unit in Europe at times, right? So it was an anxious one to watch, especially because I was going to dinner immediately after, right? And you know what it's like when all eyes are on you Saturday 5:30. I just didn't want my phone going bang, 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 bang if a late one went in. So I'm glad we held on for the 1-0. And on balance, I think if you had to choose a winner, I think it was us.
Yeah, I said in my match report that Fulham fans might feel they were deserving of a point, but I don't feel that anymore because when you really look back at Calafiori marginally offside, well, okay, he's clearly offside, but it's not
a beautiful finish. What a beautiful finish!
Unreal finish. I think from the 25th minute onwards, that kind of chaotic threat that Fulham seemed to have, maybe didn't quite have as much as we thought or felt at the time. That was, like you said, I like that word, extinguished. It really was. We saw a fire, we put it out, and they didn't really do anything after that. From that point on, Arsenal grew into it, never to the point of hitting anywhere near their best. I don't think from an attacking perspective, this performance even hit a 5 out of 10, really. But it just became a little bit more relentless in terms of being camped in their half, having possession. And there's I know Arsenal having a good game when this happens. we have an attack. Sky Sports or whoever is broadcasting it show the attack. At the minute they cut back, Arsenal are back on the ball. That's when I'm like, okay, yeah, we're building momentum now. That for me is a sign of, because I've remembered that feeling as an Arsenal fan when we've had it against us, where I go, how did we just lose the ball? Can they show us how we just lost the ball because we haven't had it for ages and now we don't have it again? And I can imagine Fulham start to feel that. I saw some tweets from some Fulham fans saying, oh my word, how do you actually play against this Arsenal team? Because we don't have Haaland, we don't have Salah, we haven't won league titles over the years, but we are tactically so unbelievably developed in so many areas of the game that it does feel like, what can we throw at them? And even when we are stopping them from a fluidity perspective, they've got set pieces they can hurt you on. So I thought we grew into it. Gyokeres was getting shots on goal. Saka, I thought, was brilliant all day. And obviously we scored from the set piece. We were looking at a little bit of a threat from them at times, not always. 1-0, and we keep, we keep it moving. But, what was your kind of, I guess the standout things here are Nicholas Jova, Bukayo Saka. Where do you want to start?
Arteta post-match, right? Because inevitably when you win 1-0 and you've scored from a corner, everyone's going to be like, oh, set piece again. I know it sounds really elementary, but he says, look, I know we're good at corners, but you have to understand that we get ourselves into situations where we generate a lot of corners. And you have to understand that in and of itself isn't easy, because not a lot of teams can do that against us. The reason that we're so successful from these set pieces is, I haven't got the numbers, but I'm pretty sure we get a lot more of them than most, because we're quite good when it comes to the wide men or getting in behind or pinging off a shot that goes for a corner. So we do generate them. And that says something about your attacking propensity. It's only at that point you can get into Jova territory and he can make a difference to the game. So that's really important. And Saka post-match was hilarious, wasn't he? When he was saying, oh man, I took a couple of rubbish corners earlier on. And he said it himself. I like the fact that he's very, very self-aware. He just speaks like a human. He doesn't speak like a robot. He doesn't speak like anyone who's got media training. He just chats to you like, oh, they were rubbish. I want to do better. Sorry, mate. Did you not see them? His exact words. But having said that, this isn't one of those games where I felt as though, sometimes we win 1-0 and you think if it didn't come from a corner, it just wasn't going to come. For me, this wasn't one of those games. I did feel as though we got in behind just enough. Yeah, perhaps made the wrong decision, but I felt like we created just enough to maybe be able to create one from open play if we had to as well. But from minute one, this game to me looked like a bunch of people that came back from international football where they had a lot more time on the ball and very quickly forgot that you don't have that level of time in the Premier League, right? I mean, you're looking at Gabriel giving the ball away. It's not necessarily because he didn't have the time, but I think at international level, your opponent may not anticipate the pass the way that Premier League opposition might. You look at Eze trying to find space, but very quickly he takes 1, 2, 3 touches and there are 4 people around him and he's given the ball away. We saw the same with Trossard. Quite a few players looked ineffective and a bit off the mark. But as you say, I think we grew into it. I think we became a bit more sort of concise with our football, concise with our touches. It wasn't vintage Arsenal. I think we had 3 or 4 gears to go up. But over the course of a 38-game season, when you've got a Champions League game against proper opposition on Tuesday night, if you can win 1-0 at a ground where you don't pick up teams and get the hell out of there and make sure you're still top on Monday without ever getting out of second gear, why not, mate? Why not?
I'm so glad you said that. It didn't feel like a game in which it had to be a set piece that won it for us. Because I agree, I saw enough from Arsenal. Tossa made a great point. Why does everyone keep basically saying that Liverpool haven't clicked, but assuming that Arsenal have? Because we haven't clicked. I actually agree with that. And I was watching us thinking, and this is going to lead nicely onto the Gyokeres chat. We are accessing areas of the pitch that we were struggling to last year. We are getting into that, into those kind of, we're getting touches in the penalty area, in the area where, it takes a swivel and a shot and it might go in the back of the net. Gyokeres is proving a handful, but not only is he proving a handful when he gets the ball because he's strong and he's turning players, but he's actually picking up spaces. And when I say pick up spaces, I don't mean just standing in the penalty area. He is very intelligently gliding into those spaces where Saka can find something in between a midfielder and a defender or 2 midfielders and pick him out. It's very little things, but I actually think we are accessing that area of the pitch much more. Dribbling into it, passing through it, driving through it. And by driving, I mean the difference between passing into the pocket or Saka driving into it and sort of threading that ball into Gyokeres. Now, he did it in the second half when Gyokeres turned and got shot away, and then Martinelli on the rebound was saved by Leno. And in the first half where was it Semenyo and Saka connected? I can't remember, or whoever. But then Saka rolls it to Gyokeres, who gets a shot away. I'm thinking we were not finding these areas of the pitch last season. And dare I say, even in 23-24, when we scored 91 goals, I think, I'm pretty sure we weren't playing into that area of the pitch as much. Maybe we still did at times, but it doesn't feel like it was as much. And I just think it's another area to our game where we're improving. So from an attacking perspective and a tactical perspective, I'm liking that, even though it's not clicked. But then obviously there's Gyokeres to talk about with that. But what do you think about the attacking football? Even though we've not clicked, I think the ideas are more varied, and I like that.
Yeah, the ideas are more varied. I can't say it any better than Alan Shearer did on Match of the Day, and I don't want to take credit for this, even though we have said pretty much the same thing. But when you were looking at perhaps last season, and you had more often than not, you had Havertz and Marino playing in that position, right? These guys are more inclined to drop deep. So the defenders are looking forward, and it's a lot easier for them to defend. But when there's someone who's constant, and don't forget, Gyokeres doesn't just make runs through the middle of the centre-back. Sometimes it's on the outside of the right centre-back. Sometimes it's out on the outside of the left centre-back. So he's occupying that whole line. These defenders have to turn around. Just that split second when you have to do that, and you have to be aware of what could be going on in behind, that ensures that we can attack those areas, right? And I think in the seasons gone by, maybe 2 years, 3 years ago, where you're saying we may not have quite accessed those areas as much. I think, look, that first time that we looked like we were about to mount a title challenge, I don't think teams set up against us the way they set up against us now, because they didn't need to. They did have more of a go. They didn't think we were as strong defensively. They thought there was something in it for them. They didn't have to set up the way they do, whereas now they do, right? And that's where the difficulty in accessing those areas of the pitch lies. And that's where a player like him is so important. It's absolutely no coincidence. We can sit there and talk about the fact that he's not scoring all day long if we want, right? And inevitably there'll be conversations about that. But if he's not doing what he's doing, I don't think, even for the offside goal, Trossard has the space, Calafiori has the space to do what they did. And I think there are 2 or 3 examples of that. He does absolutely contribute. And that is why, one of the main reasons why, in my opinion, Leandro Trossard was our 10th goal scorer of the season. 10th.
So was that his first goal in the league? Wow.
And he was our 10th goal scorer. So we've now got goals from all over the pitch, right? And that the space, I know it sounds mad. I said this on the last pod because people were saying, oh, Havertz created space as well, but he didn't score and you guys gave him a bunch of shit. But Gyokeres does it in a slightly different way, where we're getting in behind and we're looking more threatening in front of goal. And that's why I'm not really here to criticize his performance or his positional awareness. What I can criticize if I need to, that moment when he's in on the left-hand side and he should really square one across, he makes a complete mess of it. The moment where he's in on the left-hand side, people look at it and go, did the ball really fall for him when he skied it? Well, the ball did fall for him. He probably should have worked the goalkeeper. There were a couple where he clean strikes at Leno, but I think savable height. If he had drilled them slightly lower, Leno probably has to go with his feet, or the ricochet falls to one of our players. But these are all things that I know he has in his locker, which is why I'm not worried, because I've seen him do this before. Maybe not at Arsenal frequently, but I've seen him do it before. So that I know will come. It's the other stuff, the stuff that is a bit harder to learn, the stuff that signifies intelligence. That's what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm happy with. He does divide opinion though, because I've seen a lot of tweets saying, "My God, this guy looks out of his depth. He looks like a complete fish out of water." And then I see others, including Alan Shearer, one of the Premier League's greatest ever strikers, saying, "Don't worry about him. He's going to come good." You know, so it'll be interesting to see how this one unfolds, man.
I just find it difficult because, you know, I could easily take the stance of, well, on this channel, I said Sesko's the one. I had Ben on and we broke it down and how he's a better fit for Arsenal. And I was right. I could easily go down that route. I mean, to reiterate my point for the 701st time, if you watched Loose Cannons, you know, I always said, if you're not going to change the way you use a striker, then Sesko's the guy. If you're going to adapt to their strengths, then it's Gyokeres. That was always my take on it. And I actually think we are adapting more to Gyokeres' strengths than I actually expected us to. But I just look at us and I think we're not, like, it's not like we're winning games and we're generating moves and Gyokeres is miles from it all. He's at the heart of it. Like, he's in there. He is receiving passes from Saka in behind or to feet. I think he should have won a penalty. He's clearly occupying defenders. He's constantly attacking space and beyond. Ødegaard and Saka look like they're enjoying the kind of passes they're playing in games because he's on the pitch. I even see Calafiori, whenever he gets the ball, I've noticed he looks into the box immediately to see if there's a cross. And then he either recycles, but he's looking up a little bit quicker. I know he's offside, but that switch, it's like you said, does it happen if the defenders don't feel they need to be tight to Gyokeres and the players around him, therefore vacating a Trossard, therefore there's a space for Calafiori to attack? Because Fulham shouldn't be that open. And I need to watch it back. And I've been doing birthday celebrations. I don't know if Gyokeres really had much to do with that, and people are saying, James, you're really forcing it. But I can't help but feel that and I can't remember who first said this, whether it was an Arteta term or something. I feel like Gyokeres is generating attacking football. What he's doing on the pitch is creating more attacking opportunities for us, whether directly or indirectly. But I feel like more often than not, I see him involved in it. It's not like Saka, Eze, and Timber have combined, whipped it into the box, and Gyokeres is nowhere to be seen. I see Gyokeres there, involved quite heavily. And then when we are going long, we are trying to play out the back, we are trying to see a game out, he's in the wars, he's winning some headers, he's holding the ball up, he's hurrying defenders, he's forcing them to do things. This idea that he's a fish out of water, I've been most disappointed with his finishing, actually. I think he'd easily have 3 more goals this season. But otherwise, I've actually been more impressed by everything else.
Yeah, completely. And I was watching it for the first 10 or 15 minutes. I was watching what we were trying to do, because I think eventually we realized that our threat was going to come slightly more from the right-hand side eventually. And I think in the second half, we moved things around to make sure it came down that side. But for a lot of the first 15 or 20 minutes, we were trying to work it down the left. And the more I thought about it, when you see the team sheet and inevitably you go, oh, he's gone Trossard again. Oh, he's gone Trossard again. I think when you're talking about playing to Gyokeres' strengths, I think he's chosen maybe Calafiori and Trossard, but certainly Trossard for Gyokeres, because every time Trossard got the ball, not on the touchline, but just slightly more centrally, it was head up, can I get one in over the top? Head up, can I get one in over the top? And that's something that I don't think Martinelli's as good at. That is something that I think Trossard does have in his locker. And he did that 2 or 3 times, unsuccessfully, but we were looking for it. And that makes a huge difference in terms of playing to his strengths, because what Gyokeres was doing at Lisbon, yes, obviously we've all seen the clips of him with 3 or 4 defenders in front of him and him just muscling his way through and then blitzing one, fine. But a lot of his goals were actually sort of head towards goal, running in behind maybe one person in front of him. He's now going to have to adapt to the fact that that's not going to happen as often as he would like in the Premier League, but we're going to have to adapt to try and make sure that that happens more often than it has done for us in previous seasons. I think that also is something that Arteta alluded to Eze struggling with, because he was squarely asked about that topic post-match. He was like, look, wasn't the best performance from him, and he did hook him, was it worrying? And he said, well, look, no, he's doing everything that I want him to, but he's not used to playing with that many players in front of him. He's used to running towards goal, and it's not as crowded. I think it was Sidwell on Sky Sports who was saying, oh, Fulham came up and sat up in 2 banks of 4. But when I was watching it and I was watching them in their defensive shape, to me it looked like a backline of 5, 3 in front, very central, to make sure they crowd out those central areas, and then the 2. That's what it looked like in terms of their defensive setup, right? And when you're trying to do that against those low blocks, that is where I think someone who's been in the team a bit longer, someone who's got that intelligence and that understanding, Ødegaard, is able to just move his body a little bit, take a little touch, look somewhere where you can move and you can pull that defense across and that block across. That's something I think Eze's going to have to get used to, because for all of his talent, there is something to be said about the level of intelligence Ødegaard has when it comes to manipulating the defense. I think this sort of game with those low blocks is probably where Ødegaard is slightly better. But when things are slightly more expansive, that's where a lot of people criticize Ødegaard, right? Oh, he's not incisive enough. He doesn't shoot enough. He doesn't pass quick enough. That's where I think Eze will absolutely, and that's exactly where Eze will shine. I think, how we were saying this is a good game, a good sort of 4-game run for Ødegaard to be out. There is another way of looking at it and saying, well, actually, if you're looking at Burnley away and Sunderland away and maybe Palace at home and maybe Atletico, they're going to set up, they're going to be quite organised. And I think that could be the one where we could have made a huge difference. And Eze's going to have to absolutely adapt. I'm interested. I nearly knocked my laptop and my camera off. Okay, we're good. I think I'm interested to see how Eze adapts to this. I think he will, and it's not surprising that it's taking him a little bit of time. That was all to say. Yes, I think we are changing to adapt to Gyokeres, but I also do think a lot of these players who are coming into our team aren't used to playing in a team where the opposition shows you that much respect and has that much fear of what you can do if they give you space.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that. 20 minutes on the clock. I don't think there's too much more to say about Fulham. Obviously, now it's a couple of days on, so we've got the win and everyone's sort of done their reactions. Sheroy's voice needs to get going again, my friend. The people want it. Did you see the calls for you on loose cannons?
Yeah, man. It was, I was at work, right? I was having the day and the week from hell at work, by the way. I've told you about it. I'm not going to bore people about it. But my brother sent me a screenshot and he was like, have you seen this, bro? Like, this has like 400 likes on it already. I was like, what is going on here? And I was like, oh, okay. Yep. Wow. Nice. I was over the moon, man. Because the thing is, like, I'm only on here. I'm not anywhere else, right? So it's sometimes I think I should be like a sort of forgotten man in the sphere. So the idea that people are actually commenting on Turkish's channel and they're like, yo, we want to see this guy, bro. It's so heartwarming, man. And it lifted me. Trust me. When I was getting absolutely battered at work, like, it lifted me. I had a little smile on my face at my desk. I was like, cool,
utterly deserved, man. Utterly deserved. Like, I was at dinner with mum and dad last night, and my girlfriend. I shouldn't forget to mention her, but we were talking about watching the podcast, and they were saying you're brilliant, and I totally agree. They're asking how it's all going, and they were very praising of you. But I'm so glad that the comments on Loose Cannons really highlighted that as well, because there were calls for lots of great people in this space. And I just love that there was, dare I say, very quietly, the most for you, I think, as far as I've seen. So yeah, big. It's good, man, because I love doing this podcast with you. Sounds like we're rounding it off on 22 minutes. We're not. We're
not at all. Just having a chat.
Did want
just
to
having a little catch up on camera.
Absolutely need to be done.
Yeah.
But no, man. It's just good to see the love for you, man. And sorry that work's been a bit of a nightmare. But at least Arsenal won, and you're getting nice comments.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reason I brought it up is because you were talking about me getting stuff out on my own channel, right? And when I'm talking about time, bro, like right now, so at the time of recording, it's my mum's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday.
And my uncle's birthday. So get this, yeah? They're siblings, both born 2 years apart on the 19th of October. Coincidentally, and rather awkwardly for my grandparents, that's 9 months after my grandmother's birthday. So we always very shiftily sometimes sort of look at my grandfather and go, only on birthdays, really? And he's just one of those very proper Asian uncles that even though he's 95, he's still there in a shirt with his mustache done. He doesn't acknowledge it. He just pretends he didn't hear us. So we like having a bit of fun with that. But yeah, so I've got, I know. I'm a dick. What can I say? But yeah, so there's that, bro. You want to get in the gym. You've got your job. I want to do the Goonerverse. I want to be able to appear on things like Loose Cannons. I want to see my friends. I want to see my family. So that's one of the reasons why my channel hasn't made a comeback yet. There's a lot going on, and I prioritize my family and my health a lot more this year. And I'm feeling good for it, bro. So for now, it is the Goonerverse, but I'm not ruling out a comeback on my channel.
Only on birthdays is jokes.
Bear in mind, I'm saying that to someone who was born in 1930. He's probably looking at me like, what is wrong with you, man? That generation would never have spoken to their grandparents like that at all. But yeah, I love them.
Man. Well, that takes us nicely on to... no, I tell you what I did want to ask you about, actually. A load of news that I've covered on Goonerverse News. And yeah, this is a news podcast. Like, for people who don't know, I don't know if I've ever actually established this. This is meant to be a podcast that reason it comes out midweek and not after games is because
generally
we've got the post-game podcast, Loose Cannons, but also because it's a news podcast. It's about kind of taking everything that's gone on in the Arsenal world and taking the main kind of talking points, going into them in good detail. Now, we will build our 11s for Atletico Madrid, but I think we should start with just looking at a load of, I say start, we're 23 minutes in, but we should just have a look at some of the news. And I'm going to work backwards through Goonerverse News. So let's start with Antoine Semenyo has a release clause. Would you rate the player? Do you think it's someone we should go for in January?
Can you think of a team that wouldn't benefit from having Anton Semenyo in it?
No.
Anyway.
I can't think of anyone who, yeah.
Well, then we've answered the question. And where is he predominantly a threat from?
What
more often than not.
Yeah.
And what was the one? Yeah, I think so, but I think he's also deadly when he's slightly left central. But those are areas where we were. I hate to say this, only 8 weeks in, but in the transfer window, that is an area where we were looking to upgrade. And if you ask anyone now about when you look at our 11, where do we think maybe? I don't know. It is that side, right? This guy, and anyone that wants to call him a flat track bully that only does it against teams that are sort of slightly below Bournemouth in the table or whatever. One, absolute nonsense. But two, if you look at the table, quite a few teams are below Bournemouth right now because they're doing so bloody well, right? And he's a huge, huge part of that.
Look, we did release clause.
Yeah, I mean,
every day of the season.
I mean, not just that, but the character. Because don't forget, he was responding to that racist fellow on the touchline when he did that, right? And he didn't let that drop his head. And he put the ball in the back of the net at Anfield. Obviously I felt aggrieved that Liverpool won, but one of the reasons I felt so aggrieved is because I wanted Semenyo to shut that guy up and do it by himself. That was one of the reasons why I was upset Bournemouth didn't get that result. And I also think, you know what? You remember years ago, right? We were talking about, we only need really maybe one or two little sprinkles here and there, and then the squad's looking good. But we didn't get those one or two little sprinkles. We didn't bring in that particular level for a window or two. I think we're now in a position with the squad where we really do only need one or two little sprinkles, especially because a lot of them are signing their deals. That guy is one of them. He is absolutely one of them. Now, I also don't think there's only going to be one club in for him. I mean, I know that some people have whatever they want to say about Indicala on X, but he has come out and said, look, there is a release clause. Liverpool have been informed. Arsenal are interested. It could be another head-to-head for a player that both of us think we benefit from, because Liverpool, I think, also might want someone to assist on that left. I know it sounds bizarre, given the amount of attacking players that they have, but really, the only player they feel comfortable at the moment playing on the left is Gakpo. And they feel like they're forcing it with anyone else, really, on that left-hand side. I think he's a very, very good answer for them over there, but equally for us. And we're in a position where, even though Trossard just scored and he does his job and he's on, he's got his $100,000 a week deal, we didn't extend it in terms of time. There were links with him perhaps leaving the club. There was chat about, well, if we get the right amount for Martinelli, if we do let go of one of those, our left-hand side, there aren't that many that can play there. Semenyo, for me, absolutely changes the dynamic. And when we're talking about being more direct, being able to instill fear in opposition, being able to create more attacking threat in positions where we don't necessarily access the pitch the way in which we'd like, that guy does it. I'd love him at Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I also think, we were just praising Gyokeres, but for all my sort of defending of him, I'm not exactly sold, like, oh yeah, this is the guy for the next 3 years. And I'm not sure Arteta's system and Arteta's Arsenal will ever be suited to that kind of power nine who's all about scoring goals and not much else. And that's why I've been actually weirdly kind of encouraged by Gyokeres' hold-up play and stuff. But I sit there and I go, next season, or from January, could be January, instead of Arsenal always looking for that right striker, and we've got Gyokeres, and I think we're going to want to obviously persist for a good 2-3 years. Do we want to be able to play someone like Semenyo down the middle too? Imagine Rice, Zubimendi, Ødegaard with Eze, Semenyo, Saka. A constant alternating trio. Any one of them could play up front or in central spaces. And then sometimes you start Gyokeres, but if you start Gyokeres, maybe you then go, a Trossard or an Eze on the left with Ødegaard, so you get more kind of ball, dribblers and neat little passes around him. Maybe you've got more in transition you need to offer, so you actually go Semenyo, Saka, Gyokeres. But then you've got Eze in the 10, and as you rightly said, in those kind of more open games, he's probably more suited to that than Ødegaard. I think Trossard and Martinelli, and I said this when I talked about the Semenyo news on Goonerverse News, I said, a lot of you won't like this because Trossard's starting games right now and a lot of people love Martinelli, I understand. But how long are they going to be happy just being bit part players in the squad with all this competition as Dalman gets older, as Madueke returns? They're not. They're going to get to a point of going, look, great to be a part of this squad and hopefully we win it this year, but ultimately I want to be playing football. And I've probably got, Trossard might feel he's got one big contract left in him, one very good move at some point. And Martinelli will certainly feel like there'll be sort of big interest, I'd imagine, for him. So when do they go? So I think they're good for this season, but I think next summer for sure, one of them's leaving. Maybe both, because Dalman's then a year older. Like I said, Madueke's fit. But then you've got Martinelli, Trossard, who I mentioned. Havertz, who has 2 years left, and there's no sign of him signing a new deal. And he's one of the highest paid players at the club and probably not going to be a starter. And then you've got Gyokeres Jesus. Again, you could say everything I just said about Havertz about him. So you've got potentially 4 forwards leaving the club next summer. And I reckon 2, maybe 3 do go. I think there's no question. I know it's the 19th of October, well, 20th when this comes out. And people will be saying, James, for God's sake, we just had a massive window, 8 signings. It was brilliant. What are we talking about signings for? Well, because this news about Semenyo is interesting. But B, because you can't sit still. You've got to keep planning. You've got to keep preparing. And the very best do get ahead with this kind of stuff and do kind of know what their next move in the market is. And I think Arsenal should be ready to either pounce in January if Martinelli or Trossard go. But if they want to see these options out to the end of the season, I'm fine. But in the summer, there's no question we need another forward again after signing 3 and developing Dalman.
And it's also so psychological, right? Because Liverpool won the league, and they went and brought in Isak, and they went and brought in Ekitike, and they went and brought in Verse. Now we're seeing how it's manifesting itself to an extent in the early parts of the season. Park that for a minute. Psychologically, what did that do to everyone else? Everyone else went, "Holy shit! The Premier League champions have just gone and bought that." Regardless of context, right? So, and that I'm not operating on the assumption that we're going to win the league before anyone wants to aim for me in the comments. But what I'm saying is, regardless of context, a signing like that makes sense. If you don't get there, well, you obviously need to strengthen because you weren't the best. But even if you were the best, you need to put the nail in the coffin in the transfer window and go again, right? So, I think it's a no-brainer. I watched the overlap every so often, and one thing that Roy Keane said when he was talking about signings. He said, sometimes we used to sign players, that United team. He said, sometimes we used to sign players, not just because we needed them, but we couldn't afford our competitors to get them. It's twofold. It's not just me, but it's also, well, if we don't get them and they do, that makes our lives so much more difficult. And he's one of those players that I think absolutely does that. I think if he walks into that City team, if they then have him and Doku on the left-hand side, for example, I'd be a bit like, oh my God. If he walks into that Liverpool team, I'd be exactly the same. Even if he walks into that Chelsea team, they've got inexperienced wingers on the left-hand side. You bring someone like him in there, suddenly their attack looks very, very different. And bro, when you said, you were talking just now and you said, yeah, maybe we could go for a Semenyo, Gyokeres, Saka with Eze or Odegaard behind. I heard that and I just went, boy, I got excited just hearing it. But, only time will tell.
And, like Liverpool last season, they played with Diaz up front, who was a left winger converted into that area. The best Liverpool sides have done that with Firmino, who was a 10 converted to a striker. Mane, a left winger converted to a striker the year that they went on that quadruple run. And they had a Núñez in the squad to give them something else. And obviously he was signed to be the guy. We hope Gyokeres is the guy. But if he's a very good squad player that offers something different, of course I'd be disappointed. Some people, rival fans might say, oh, so you're moving the goalposts already. No, we've just spent a lot of time praising him and giving him some credit. Watch Loose Cannons, I give him a lot of credit. I like what Gyokeres is giving us, but it's always options. Semenyo gives you a touchline winger and an inside forward and a false 9 and an in-behind striker. Like, he can do all those things because he's got the build, he's got the technical quality, he's brilliant off both feet. He's just immensely talented and intelligent. And I think that's exactly the kind of player we should be looking for, especially when there's a great need. Now, if Havertz and Jesus we were all sold on, Trossard was looking in great form, Martin was having an impact off the bench, they weren't paid as much as they are, and they had many years on their contracts, I'd be saying, look, let's see. But I actually think there is more of a pressing need than people realise. So I'm really excited to see how Arsenal approach January, but mainly the summer. But let's see. I mean, Andrea Berta has made a great start. Let's get Saka tied down and let's see what happens. Let's also go into some other news. And I'll kind of ask you all about this in one go. Kai Havertz could be back soon. White is having his sort of training managed, but is ultimately sort of still fit and available. But people were starting to turn on the timeline, Sheroy. When do we just buy a new right back and say it's not? And I thought that was really harsh, considering it's actually only been 12 months of indifferent injury problems, in which he's actually still been more available than not. It's more the form that's been the problem. So I just want to know where you land on both those. Havertz's return, any pressure on Gyokeres, Ben White and his fitness concerns. Again, I appreciate he was fit. He was just having his training managed, and I understand that. But also don't know how good a sign it is that he wasn't on international duty and he had to have his training managed. I don't think that's necessarily a good sign either. Over to you, my friend.
I'll start with Ben White. Ben White's a concern for two reasons, right? One, if you are picking up recurring injuries and your form is a concern, bro, you're not going to be able to play yourself into form. And we're not in a position now where we can afford to play an out of form Ben White in the Premier League too often, because even if you're looking at the newly promoted teams, Burnley aren't the easiest to bloody score against at their ground. Sunderland do quite well at their ground, right? So you can't really take those risks. You would like an informed Ben White, but to do that, you have to play him into form, which is why it's so important that we do well in the early stages of the Champions League. So maybe we can rotate later. It's so important that we get past Brighton. I hope he can play in that Brighton game. We get through that and he gets those games as well, so we can build his minutes up. I could say the same about a few players, quite frankly, where I think they need minutes outside of the Premier League to make us feel confident about them being able to play in the Premier League. Ben White's also a concern because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't like the fact that Timber has to play as much as he has to play, coming off the back of the amount of minutes he had to play last year for a similar reason after a serious injury. We cannot afford for Timber to go down, particularly for a sustained period of time. No matter what anyone says, people might want to criticize his offensive prowess. I think that has improved over recent weeks, by the way. But defensively, the guy is honestly one of the best right backs I've seen in the Premier League for the last 5 years. He's really, really up there, but he will need a break every so often. I'm not done with Ben White yet. Memories are so short in football, bro. Like, Ben White was honestly one of the best players in our team. There was a time where when Ben White wasn't playing, we thought we were completely shafted. There was a time where we felt as though Bukayo Saka looked wholly ineffective at times without Ben White on the overlap and someone in behind him. We used to blame Ben White's absence for Saka not looking at his best. That's how good Ben White was. That stuff doesn't disappear, bro. It doesn't just go. The guy's been unlucky with injuries. Some people are saying, well, actually, no, you're wrong, Sheroy. The team's evolved past Ben White. Well, show me the evidence for that. Show me the evidence for that, because for me, there is absolutely still room for an overlapping fullback. There is still room for someone to go in behind and get slightly more effective crosses in from the touchline on the right-hand side. There is still room for what Ben White used to do, which is sometimes be slightly more central and thread a little ball through to Saka. We used to talk about that triangle, that Ødegaard, White, Saka triangle. That was our best triangle. That was where we got most of our goals from, arguably in the season where we looked the best going forward. So no, I'm not done with him, but I don't want to rush him either. I'm torn, man, because I don't want to rush him, but I don't want Timber playing every bloody game at right back either. Problem is, if you rush him and he's not ready and he does look bad, his confidence goes, the fan base suddenly start turning. They need to play it right. They need to be mature, but we do need him back. And I'm absolutely not done with him. I think you're the same. I know you're a massive Ben White fan.
Yeah. I think the rushing him bit's interesting. I definitely wouldn't rush him on the fitness front, but I would rush him into form. Like, if it's a case of, well, he's not quite match fit, I'd say, well, I don't really care. Like, there's too much football. Like, you're going to have to bring it out of yourself, Ben. And that's not actually, that sounds like a dig at him. It's not. This is a guy who, more than any other player in the squad, has played through injury and just played through it, whatever it's taken. He did that on the final, when Newcastle away, 21-22, just in the hope of getting us Champions League football, he did it. I think 22-23 did a little bit, but 23-24, there's no question he had injuries and he played through it. So I don't question his commitment. He wants to be on that pitch. He's a very sturdy player, Ben White, both like physically and mentally. So I don't doubt him. Now, in terms of sort of people kind of looking to move on, I mean, the questions were starting to be asked, and a lot of people can frame it as, well, I was just asking the question. Yeah, but you're asking it because you're starting to maybe think it yourself. And I can't really begrudge people for starting to wonder. But again, it felt a bit too soon for me. It was only this season that I was starting to be done with Tomiyasu. That was 3-4 years of injury consensus. I rated the player so much. But over the years at Arsenal, more than any club I know, I've seen so many talented footballers where injuries have got in the way. Fabregas, Rosicky, Wilshere, Diaby, Van Persie, constant injuries. Thomas Vermaelen, so many injuries. And in that list alone, I'll tell you ones who never recovered. Diaby, Eduardo, Wilshere, Vermaelen. They never went on to have the careers they could and should have had because the recurring injuries were too much and they couldn't rediscover that form and they weren't it. But Fabregas, Van Persie, Thomas Rosicky, okay, he wasn't the first two, but he's a very good player. They did eventually get to a point of the fitness clicking, having a run, and then suddenly just setting the world alight. And then Van Persie, 2 years for Man United, fit, won them the title. Actually, 3 years if you include the final season he had with us. His last 18 months, he was regularly fit and available. I remember him coming back for a Barcelona game that we thought he was out for 4-6 weeks, and suddenly he was in the squad. Fabregas definitely proved his fitness over his career. Thomas Rosicky, so injury prone. His last couple of years at Arsenal, very available as far as I'm concerned. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was. So players do come out of these moments. And I'm not willing to throw the talent on Ben White when I think he's such a talented footballer. And even with that game against Fulham, where Timber was brilliant defensively again, in the wars, he's always in the wars. I love Jurgen Timber. Yeah. I think he's a sensational footballer. But there were still little things in the final third that I thought Ben White would have done better there. Ben White would have found a ball over the top to Saka, would have maybe overlapped a little bit better to help destroy the fullback even more, would have played a few little neat passes through the lines, would have maybe received the ball on the half turn a little bit better. There were just certain things where I think Ben White at his best makes use of that. Now, we can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, well, Timber's getting up to speed in that, because we've just been saying how brilliant he is, one of our players of the season, and defensively, everything's on point. There's just a difference in the two's major talents. And when it comes to going forward, my bets are still with Ben White. But I think Timber's got the shirt and is overall the best right back we've got right now.
Yeah, but I mean, look at so many other positions on the pitch where we have two players that could play that position. They're not identical players. They're not exactly the same in terms of their style. It is important to have that variety in those options. I mean, you can look at the left-hand side as a prime example. Calafiori and Luis Skelly are very, very different players. But quite frankly, they're both very, very good in their position. And a lot of people say one offers a bit more in this area, one offers a bit more in that area, right? And I am interested to see what Hincapié offers as well, but that's a separate conversation. And that leads on to what you were saying about Havertz, right? Because in terms of having two players that can occupy a position, Havertz and Gyokeres are very, very different players. You've got one, I'm not going to repeat myself, but everything I said about Gyokeres stands, about getting him behind, being on the shoulder or whatever. But you do have Havertz who does get slightly more involved in the build-up play, is slightly more of a connector, does link up a little bit better with those wingers from what we've seen. The way that Arteta speaks about him in terms of what he does to get back as quickly as he does, I don't want people to let that just fly over their heads either, because yeah, injuries do have a timeline, but that timeline is very much dependent upon the player too. Like, yeah, there's biology involved, but there's also an element of, well, how much do I want to get back on that pitch? This guy sounds like he's really, really, really pissed off that he's missing these games. And he wants to be able to contribute to get us over the line. So the fact that he's that hungry and he wants to come back, I'm not only excited by that, but I'm excited by, again, it's giving us that potential for variety up top. It means that Gyokeres doesn't have to come off in the 94th minute as a time-wasting substitution. It means that sometimes he could start from the bench. You know how we talk about how Martinelli's look better off the bench when legs are tired? Fuck me, can you imagine Gyokeres coming off the bench when legs are tired, when bodies are tired, right? Let Havertz do the link-up stuff. Let him try and break down the 5-3-2 defense of Fulham, but then bring Gyokeres on when Fulham are one behind and they need a goal. You do that, the game probably ends 2-0 as opposed to 1-0. So I think we need that. I think we do need that. And I think we've been very, very lucky to have Gyokeres fit for this period of time, because coming into this league and then starting the way he did, I mean, he flew from halfway across the world pre-season, and then comes straight back here and is in the Premier League, in every cup, basically, in the Champions League. Without much help. I think even though he doesn't want it, I think he needs it.
Yeah, agreed. He's played every game. Whether he's come off the bench or started, he's played every game. And he definitely was starting games quicker than people would have expected. So, yeah, Havertz's return, for me, just creates competition. And I like that. I think every player has benefited from competition. I think Calafiori looks a better player because of what Lewis Skelly did last year. I think Timber is sensational knowing that Ben White's breathing down his back, and I hope that happens the other way too. Bukayo Saka, we talked about in the last pod, I talked about on Loose Cannons, is wanting to just destroy the fullbacks after some of the praise Madueke is getting. I'm not saying that's why he's wanting to do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that fuels him a little bit too. And then you got Max Dowman coming through and what they're saying about him. And then you got Martin Odegaard playing some of his best football despite 3 injuries, because Eze and Nwaneri are there too. And then you got Trossard coming up with clutch moments despite struggling. Martinelli off the bench having an impact because they know they could be 3rd in the pecking order or 4th because Madueke and Eze are now there. So when Havertz comes back, I'm hoping he either improves Gyokeres, or if it doesn't, it's at least improved Havertz. One of those two will be in better form for having the other there. And I think that's a good thing. This isn't Raya Ramsdale where you're never going to make substitutions with the goalkeeper. Everyone should be benefiting from the depth and competition. I think Saliba and Gabriel look much more, apart from the first 15 minutes giving the ball away against Fulham, look much more themselves. Against Fulham in terms of the type of defending they're doing. Because again, Nketiah, Calafiori, Mosquera could all be playing in their spots. They wouldn't. I don't think they would. Those two guys. But competition's a good thing. So I welcome Havertz's return. Because I think he's a good player, but I think it has an impact on everyone.
And look at Liverpool. Liverpool went and spent some 100-odd million on Alexander Isak. Let's not forget that guy didn't come from the Portuguese league. He was already sort of suited to the Premier League. He knows what the Premier League's about. However, Slot has said, well, we need to manage his fitness. He needs to get up to speed. He needs to learn the system. So they play Ekatike in there sometimes. We haven't had that luxury with Gyokeres, man. He's had to learn on the job. And when you're learning on the job, all the stuff that you could work on the training ground before you're unveiled to the public actually gets unveiled to the public on the pitch, which is not an ideal position, particularly when memories are short. People are very quick to come to conclusions, very quick to make opinions about players. Gyokeres hasn't had the same luxury that Isak has had. He's had to walk straight into this team, learn on the job and say, I'm trying to figure it out here, right? Had Havertz been fit, he wouldn't have had to do that. So credit to him for the way that he's dealt with that assignment, because the most expensive striker in the league didn't have to do it that way.
Yeah. Totally agree. Okay, Atletico Madrid then. I cannot believe it. 47 minutes. This is the fastest a pod's ever gone for me.
It's mad. It is mad. I don't know. Are you like this on other pods though? Because I'll be honest, bro, when I record elsewhere, sometimes when I'm 47 minutes in, I do glance at the clock. I don't do that once here.
Well, no, I glance to time code, which makes it feel even faster because I'm like, I am actually kind of watching the clock and yet it's flown by. And normally when you're watching the clock, time goes slower. Sorry, guys. I know we're doing a little bit of, it's quite self-congratulatory or whatever the word is. But, we hope you're all finding it goes quite quickly listening. We're just such a good podcast, Sheroy. It's just so good. Time's flying.
100%. We should just call it the best on the internet. Don't call it the Goonerverse podcast. There was one of the comments that said, "Can you give this podcast a name that isn't the Goonerverse?" Let's just.
Do
call
you
it
think it should have a name?
I like the fact that right now it's the only podcast on the Goonerverse, so the Goonerverse podcast does make sense. I think if you had more than one, then you probably would need to name a mate. But given that this is the flagship pod on your channel, I think it should stay.
Okay, people in the comments, send names if you have any good ones, and we'll consider it. The reason I like it is because the reason I came up with the name Goonerverse, which actually people don't know, is I came up with this years ago, long before AFTV. It was when I had basically the idea for like a comic book style covering of Arsenal. Like basically it was a way to get kids involved. And obviously when you think of universe, the multiverse, I thought Goonerverse, there's something there. Kids love the whole superhero comic thing. And I thought there was something there. And I always had an idea for a YouTube channel. And then obviously at AFTV, I sort of got to grips with all that and learned about it and thought, okay, well, I could do something, but maybe in a different way to how I expected. So that's where Goonerverse came from. And what I did was I looked at Goonerverse to sort of change the meaning behind it. I thought, well, maybe it's just the universe of all things Arsenal. Like basically just everything we kind of discuss from an Arsenal perspective, we kind of capture here. So it kind of fits, but I just wonder whether there's another better name for the show that we have.
All the comments are just going to say, call it the Zubimendi and Marino podcast or the Spanish midfield podcast now. That's what all the comments are going to say. I don't know why we've done this.
It'll die in 3 years when they're gone. Anyway,
and we look old and haggard as well. We look nothing like them in 3 years.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure I quite see the Zubimendi one, but I'll take it. Okay, so Atletico, 10 minutes. Let's do it. What do you think?
I don't like the turnaround time for a team like that, to be honest with you. Sunday, Monday, they're not going to train on Tuesday. I mean, I understand that it gives us a fair bit of time before Palace on Sunday, but I think that's a quick turnaround, and that's why I think rotation is going to be very, very important here. I know that a lot of people will say no, but we're still very early on in the Champions League. This is one of those games that you have to win, but Calafiori is an injury-prone player, and we do have Lewis Skelly who isn't getting enough minutes. Is this a game for him? I mean, say what you want. I don't think he did look great in that 10, particularly on the right side. Do we want to switch that up a little bit? Is it a game where, because they're going to be so solid, or you think they're going to be so solid because it's a Simeone team in a big game, is it a game where actually you want to try Eze again in the same position and say, well, unlock this slot. This is what you're going to have to do now that Ødegaard's out. This is going to be one of the most interesting team selections I've seen this season. I know we analysed the City game. I know we looked at what we could have done at Liverpool. This is one where I think, because of the proximity with the game that we just played and the assignment that we think ahead of us, I really want to see how Arteta handles this. I mean, where are you going with the 11? What do you think?
Well, this is fascinating, okay? Because I'm just looking at the Atletico team now. 4-4-2. Koke, obviously, and ever present. Griezmann, Alvarez up front. Bayern on the right. Now, I'm so interested to see what he does to stop us. Because if I just look at the Real Madrid game, because they've had a mixed set of results, but they did smash Real Madrid 5-2. Again, 4-4-2, very similar 11, Simeone on the right, Sorloth up front. I have a feeling that's not the tallest team they've got. But I have a feeling they'll still have those Simeone principles of sitting back. I think Mourinho might start, I think he might just want to overwhelm them physically. So my predicted 11 in terms of the midfield is that he'll go Rice, Zubimendi, Marino, but with Eze on the left. So there's still some creativity. So Eze, Gyokeres, Saka. I think he'll see that as the balance. I don't think it's any coincidence that he brought Marino on when we weren't even under the cosh really against Fulham, but he still opted to get Marino on for Eze, which I thought was just a bit of an interesting. I thought, you could have put Trossard 10 and then Martinelli on the left. You could have gone for, Waneri. So I thought that was interesting. And is it sort of preparing for Atletico? So I think that's what he'll do. It's not what I would do though. What do you think Arteta will do?
I think he'll do exactly the same thing. Look, regardless of what anyone says, Marino has been scoring goals internationally, and he has scored some very important and incredible goals for us, right? In games that have actually looked quite tight. In a European game like that, where physicality is going to be a thing, you mentioned Alvarez and Griezmann. I mean, bro, that's a potent team, and the midfield are going to have to do a lot of defensive work. I mean, Zubimendi did it at Fulham, quite frankly. When our centre backs were a bit shaky at the beginning, Zubimendi was playing centre back, and Calafiori was playing striker. It was interesting to watch. I think the Atletico game is going to look very, very similar. I'd be more than happy if he started that team. And don't forget, he has now shown this season that if things aren't looking quite right at half time, he is content to change it. That's something I didn't know about Arteta, really. But if he now looks at it and says there's a way in which I can change the game at half time, I'll do it. So cool. I think this is one of those games where, again, early on in the Champions League, start safe, rotate where you can, and then kick on. So yeah, more than happy with that.
Okay, so let's build our 11s then, because you said the word rotation. I mean, obviously that doesn't count for Raya, who starts in goal, and bless his heart, hasn't had too much work to do. But I think there was a nice little pass with his left foot out in the second half against Fulham, where he was being put under pressure, and you're thinking, you could just smack this up the pitch, but he just nicely just rolls it out to Calafiori or Rice or whoever it was. Maybe Zubimendi, I can't remember. But anyway, then you think he's really composed out the back this season, David Raya. Back four, I think Timber has to play. But then I'm like, is he going to play all 3 games? Part of me does want, probably because of the gap between Atletico and Palace, part of me does think we need to get Ben White on that pitch. But then it's Brighton at home next week in the Carabao Cup. Would you go Timber?
I think Ben White plays the Brighton game. I think it's Timber up until then, in all honesty. I think that's the way it's going to go.
So, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori
looks so good right now. I don't want to take him out of the team, but he is one of those players that I do worry if he goes down for a little while. And am I being soft? Am I being a bit too sensitive here for Miles? But I feel for the kid, man. Like he didn't do anything wrong to lose his place in the Premier League, and now he's not even really seeing substitute minutes. The problem is this game the game to give him his time? You know, I'd be more inclined to maybe start him against Palace at home than I would in this game. I think maybe give Calafiori this game too.
I actually don't feel sorry for Miles. What I mean by that is, I think he had a lightning season last year, which wasn't expected. You know, he started that campaign as a 17-year-old, turned 18 around this time of year. You know, has had some incredible experiences, you know, playing at the Bernabeu, starting in the Champions League semi-final for Arsenal at left back, obviously PSG as well. You know, got an England spot, got an England goal. And he's still been called up to the squad. You know, Tuchel still really rates him and has faith in him. Arteta clearly still really rates him. And the main reason for all that is not just, you know, I'm not trying to say, oh, count yourself lucky, like be grateful. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying all those things are just worth noting. He probably played a lot more football last year than they expected. Therefore, managing him a little bit, which isn't the worst thing. I think he's got every chance of earning that spot back between now and the end of the season. But also, I'd go as far as say that it's quite clear that Arteta doesn't necessarily think Calafiori is more talented than Lewis Skelly. It's a tactical thing. We have got more inverted forwards on the left than touchline wingers, and Calafiori supplements that a lot better than Lewis Skelly. Like, he's a much better, like, powerhouse driving presence on the outside and the inside than Lewis Skelly. And with Rice playing deeper next to Zubimendi, that role isn't there for Lewis Skelly in the squad. So I think if I'm Lewis Skelly, I'm thinking this is just the nature of what the team are tactically doing now, but that will evolve throughout the season. And there'll be plenty of times where we need Miles as well. So I'm not worried about him at all. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about Calafiori there, I think that's particularly important against this Simeone side as well. Oh my God, I nearly knocked my mic off again. What am I doing this morning? Especially because we're both, I think, going for Eze on the left. I think that's where you do want Calafiori doing exactly what Calafiori does, which is why I'd probably give him the game. Yeah.
All right. So do you want to throw out a score prediction? I went 2-1 Arsenal on loose cannons. What are you going for?
I can't. You know what? I'm going to sound like a dick. I can't back a team to score against us right now. I just can't.
Julian Alvarez, Griezmann.
I know. But bro, like, we were up against that Liverpool attack and it took an absolute screamer.
Yeah.
For them to get one, and that was at their gaff. Even against City, I mean, it took something absolutely sensational from Haaland to capitalise on Gabriel getting a little bit too tight, and after that, they didn't really have a sniff. We're just coming off the back of 2 games where our opponent hasn't had a bloody shot on target. I know that Alvarez is in the form of his life, but I think a lot of people say 1 just because they look at the calibre of the opposition. But I think we do need to really, really, really start understanding what our defensive unit is. But I also think I understand what our offensive unit is. I don't think it's going to be a game that creates fireworks. I'm going 1-0. I'm going 1-0 to the Arsenal.
Yeah, 1-0 for you, 2-1 for me. I can't remember the scores on loose cannons, but you guys can go watch that on Turkish's channel.
I will too. I love that.
Yeah, you enjoyed it?
Yeah, of course. It came out when I was in the office, right? I was like, oh my God, I want to watch it now. But I watched it on the way home. I missed you lot, man. I missed you lot. I'm glad you lot are back together. Well, 3 of you.
Yeah, appreciate it. No, it was good to drop that podcast. We didn't really sort of say anything about it, and the comments was it was very, very overwhelming. But as are the comments on this channel right now, everyone, like a huge, huge thank you. And it's only words. I wish I could say more. I wish I could like really action my gratitude in another way. Maybe I have to think about how I can do that, maybe giveaways or something I can figure out. But we see the comments. It means the world. I've been terrible replying to comments. It's been a really hectic few weeks, as you all know. And now we're doing this first thing on a Sunday morning to come out on Monday because of birthday plans. So I feel very lucky. Don't get me wrong, feel very grateful, very lucky, but I just haven't had the time to go through all the comments and everything that I want. I do see them all though, and I really, really appreciate them. So a big, big thank you for supporting the pod. And since you're cool for 60k, Sheroy, like they're pushing it, you know. They're not
58.8. I just looked, and this one is going to drop. This one is going to drop on your birthday. So for anyone that didn't watch the last 2 weeks, I'm going to say it again. It's James's birthday today. If you're watching this the day it comes out, it's James's birthday today. He was knocking about, I think, in the 55s, where we could have said, let's go for 56. But I said, for my boy's 30th, can we get him to 60? I said it quietly thinking it'll be a stretch, but it's doable. It is doable. If these people do hit the subscribe button, it is doable because we get enough views. By the time this comes out, he might only be 1K away. I know you can make it happen before we drop the next Goonerverse. I know you can. And for him to have his 60K for his 30th birthday, I guarantee you, he'll definitely find a way to thank you after that.
Listen, thank you, Sheroy, for the huge push, and thanks to everyone in the comments, or in the community who have liked the video, subscribed to the channel, and supported everything. Because it's been a massive jump in the last few weeks. I really appreciate it. All right, well, we will be back next week, so it'll be a reaction to both Atletico and Palace. I know originally we said that this would come straight after Atletico, but some stuff came up. It's not quite signed, still delivered, but just some exciting potential work, which I'll obviously tell you all about if that happens for Atletico. So then we had to change the time for this. But big thanks to everyone. Go check out Loose Cannons if you haven't yet. Obviously, thank you for watching this. Big thanks to Sheroy. Sheroy, get back to content soon, man. We miss you. And yeah,
I miss it too. But I'm glad you give me the opportunity to get on camera anyway, because it gives me that little hit that I need of venting with Arsenal with someone that I really, really enjoy doing content with, and with a community that I love. So thank you all.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll leave it there. Big thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next week. Let's hope Arsenal have another big week. We're top of the table. Catch you all in a bit.